Today my aim is to help you by sharing with you the most common mistakes I find in student report writing. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. My name is Beck. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been with me for a while, thank you. If you haven't subscribed, buttons and everything are in the description below, along with all my social media links. I have a professional Twitter account, which is where I share things about just what's going on with my school and the things that I'm doing. For example, my school just became a white ribbon school, so if you want to check out how that looked, head over to my Twitter, which is BeckWest81. And I've also got the Talk and Chalk Facebook page, Talk and Chalk Instagram, and a random Pinterest as well, which is just where I share resources and things. Lately it's been lots of funny teacher memes, just because it's getting to the end of the year and we all need a lovely good laugh to keep going. On that note, as we get to the end of the year, we're getting to all sorts of festivals and celebrations, and it's coming up with lots of celebratory stuff. So I have a playlist in my YouTube page, homepage, I guess it's called, playlist of different gifts and activities that you can do at the end of the year, including staff gifts. I try and focus on things that are not so expensive, very easy to do, but still fun and effective. And it's also that time of the year where lots and lots of jobs are being advertised, temporary and permanent. So if you're not sure about writing any of those applications, I also have a playlist with tips and advice on job applications for merit selection, for permanent, as well as interview tips and some feedback things as well, and also the common mistakes I see on CVs. So head over to the page, have a look at those. So today though, this is kind of a follow-on from a video I did a year ago with my tips on report writing. So if you haven't seen that, I will link it at the end of this video so that you can see it, with lots of details about how I find it effective to write report comments. We're talking about report cards at the end of the year for this. But I've been editing reports now for 7, 8 years, a bit more, and then like being a buddy reader as well when I was a classroom teacher. So these are things that I'm sharing today that are consistently in reports every single year. This isn't anything that has just come up from the ones that I'm currently editing at the moment. This is just every single year, every single semester. These are the common things that I see. And what I hate, and because I hated this feeling myself, was finishing reports, getting all that writing done, and then feeling like, yes, I'm done. Hand them in, star for myself, self high five. And then getting it back with a bunch of red pen all over it with lots and lots of changes. So deflating, so time consuming. I'd like to take away the time consuming part of that and just get to those bare basic things that are the easy things that, you know, really we should be noticing ourselves when we write these comments. The problem is that we know we get a bit blind by the end of it, especially if you're a high school teacher that's writing tons and tons and tons of reports in a school that has, 1,200 kids in it. It gets a bit onerous and you start to go a bit blind and you don't see your mistakes. So I highly encourage you to have a buddy reader, be a buddy reader for someone else. And if it's someone who's not in your faculty, someone who's not on your grade, it's a fresh set of eyes. It's so much better because they're going to look at it the same way they've been looking at their own, and it's just going to end up getting missed. So if you can do that, I highly recommend it. So it's been a while, but I've got out the trusty notebook. Can you believe I've been using this since I started the channel and I still haven't gone all the way through it? I don't always write notes for myself, and I don't always use more than one page. So I'll get myself comfy here. There's not too much there. I've only written a little page today, so this one should be nice and quick. So these are the main things that I see all the time. Rushed. So rushed comments because someone hasn't stuck to the timeline. And one of the recommendations I give is following a timeline. We recommend one for our teams. We write it out and we have deadlines. And if you stick to that timeline, it should make it easy for yourself. It's good work-life balance, and it means that you're not repeating yourself all of the time, you're not rushing to get it done, and you're not making silly mistakes in the process. Using educational jargon. In my state system, it's in the policy, it says to use plain English. And this isn't because parents are dumb. It's not because of any of that. It's because we use a ton of acronyms and educational speak that they might not be aware of. And when we're reporting back to parents, it needs to be in a language that they can understand. The same way that when, I go to the mechanic, hopefully he's not talking down to me, but he's using language that I can understand. Usually, the shiny bit over there under the wobbly thing. Hyphens. This is the bane of my existence, is where hyphens do and don't go. And unfortunately, this can often come down to the school or the supervisor that you have. So what we've done at my school is we've written a set criteria for words that do use hyphens, words that don't use hyphens, and then an explanation for where hyphens belong if you're putting, you know, two adjectives together in that sentence. So, and I've got examples there for it. And I tell you what, it has cut it down a lot, because just that general understanding of where those hyphens go and the expectation, if it's in a criteria that your school has written, use it. Don't argue with it throughout that process. If you want to argue with whether or not that hyphen is meant to be in that spot, have that conversation before report writing hits. Don't do it after you've written them, after you've handed them in, after they've been edited and come back to you. That's just wasting your time and energy. And if you're not sure, Google's right there. It will give you an explanation of where you should or shouldn't be using a hyphen. Putting too many simple sentences into one comment, or for that matter, run-on sentences. You know, we teach our kids where to use conjunctions. Use them. You can make those compound sentences, and sometimes it's a good way to be able to chunk information together that goes together. So, you know, you want to say two things about how a student is progressing in reading. Put it together. You don't have to write two separate things. You know, it's good writing, good grammar. This is a big one. Not matching the comment to the effort or the achievement grade that you're giving them. So sometimes you're giving a child a C, which if you're not in my system, I'm in Australia, in New South Wales. A C is where a child should be. This is not a bad thing. In Australia, A means it's well above your peers. You do not expect to see lots of A's in Australia. Those are more for your gifted and talented students. Students sitting just above where the cohort is a B, that's high achievement, and then C is sound. This is exactly where we expect them to be. They are meeting stage expectations. So if you're giving that child a C, and then you're saying is showing high achievement in reading and writing, if you've put that in your sentence, it doesn't actually match what you've given them. You're not using that same language. So a good way to do this is develop a word bank. Hopefully some schools have done this for you. Develop a word bank of language that goes with outstanding, that goes with high, that goes with sound, and then we've got our lower ones, which is basic and limited. So at least that way you know what kind of language matches those levels that you're giving the kids. Same thing for effort. If you write in your thing, always puts in a wonderful effort in class, but then you've given them satisfactory, you know, that doesn't really marry up. As a parent, I would be coming in and going, well, you think that excellent effort in class is satisfactory? That doesn't make sense. So the reason I see this mistake is because a lot of people need to do their comments in Microsoft Word, because the systems that we're using, we don't trust often. So we save it in Word and then we copy and paste it in at the end. Problem is, though, a lot of people are handing in their comments to their supervisors in that Word document. So what I do is I make sure that the final thing that I am editing has all of the effort and achievement scores with it. So if you're an executive, I recommend doing this because this is where it'll come out. But as a teacher, I recommend doing this yourself. You should have the capacity to go in and print those reports in a summary profile. Most software systems have this, where you can print it out as a one-page thing. It's tiny writing, but I just do it on the Surface Pro and zoom in, and then I hand write it onto the screen. You'll be able to see this that way, and then you'll be able to see whether or not that matches. And then that way too, you'll see if something has been cut off, like a sentence or a word or punctuation at the end of it too. Okay, oh, that's my phone buzzing. I didn't realize I didn't turn that off. Okay, something else that I see often is when you've repeated something from a KLA into your general comment. So the biggest one I often see is mentioning in English that so-and-so participates well in class conversations, classroom discussions. And then in the general comment, they've said again, so-and-so enjoys participating in classroom conversations. I understand the intent. I'm sure in the general comment, you are probably saying that it's not just in English, it's in all KLAs. But if that's the case, I would just keep it in the general comment and say that they are doing it across all key learning areas. Take it out of the English one and put something else in English that's a bit more specific, like asks quality questions to gain more information during classroom conversations or something like that. So that at least you're not repeating yourself. Ending on a negative. Now, in my other video, you'll see that I go into a bit more detail about why we write reports the way we do now. So back in the day, my reports had things like talks too much, is easily distracted, yada, 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 squirrel. So in reports now, though, the focus is on what a student is achieving. It's what they're demonstrating and what they're capable of. And you can put areas in there for improvement as a recommendation. It's not the place to be having a conversation with a parent on paper and saying, little Billy is easily distracted in class and never participates in activities. If that's the case, you shouldn't be waiting 6 months to be telling that parent that on paper, in a report, going home right before the holidays. That should be a conversation much, much earlier. What you're reporting on is what's going on with the curriculum and how they're meeting those expected outcomes that they have from the syllabus. So if you're ending your comments on a negative, that's what sits with the parent, and the focus is not on what that child is capable of, not capable of, but what where they are in their achievement levels. So if you have something in there that might come across as a bit negative, say for example, I'm all for putting in there, so-and-so, might be off task, and as a result, work is often left incomplete. And then, that's my hubby just popping in telling us that he's ordered pizza. Thank you, hubby. And because that might affect their achievement level. And if that's been an ongoing conversation that you've had with the parent as well, then you're reporting back to the parent about that conversation that you've been having, about how that behavior is impacting that specific part of learning. That's a bit different, but you don't put that at the end. You still want them and the child as well to be finishing that comment thinking like, this is what I have achieved this semester. That's the whole point of these things, and it's in our policy. If you're in a different state, your policy might be different. So my experience, remember, and any of my videos is only ever based on my experiences. It's not the be-all, end-all. That's just mine. Making predictions. You should not be making predictions in those comments because you can't guarantee it. You can't say that if blah practices his spelling every night for homework, he will be guaranteed to get 100% in spelling. You can't guarantee that. That's not the case. You can, however, recommend that with higher engagement in spelling activities, so-and-so, this would benefit so-and-so. I feel like I need a name, Johnny. Johnny could benefit from higher engagement in spelling activities during class. Something like that. Could. Don't say will, don't be predictory like that. Just put that notion in their mind that, there's the possibility of more achievement if blah occurs. I'm saying again, I know. Another thing that I often see is when the entire general comment ends up being about behavior, and this is a red flag for me as a supervisor, because this says to me that the teacher is doing it a bit tough, that child has been difficult, especially when we get to report writing time and it's the end of the year. It's the worst time to be writing in reports. When kids get ready, they're all over the place. We've got different activities happening and it's just all crazy. Lately here we had full moon and crazy dust storms on the same day. Teacher's nightmare. So when I see that and it's all about behavior, then it's not talking about what that child is achieving. So I understand the value of commenting on it, but that's your space to be putting in the skills that they've been developing. What future focus skills, what digital technology skills, their approach to learning. Do they question, do they query, are they critical thinkers? This is socializing. Some schools put extracurricular in that general comment, and that's the space to be finding those other things. My previous principal told me, if you cannot find something good to say about that child, it's not a reflection of the child. That's a reflection on you. If you can't find something that child has achieved in a whole semester of learning, the problem's not with the kid. And I take that into account because we as teachers need to be constantly reflecting on what we're doing, reflecting on the impact that we're having, and understanding that if that child is not making growth, we need to look at what we're doing and what we need to change for them. Oh my God, not rereading it. Reread it, people. Seriously, the things that I get in, that I've had in over the time that I've been an executive, I think to myself, did you seriously just type that once and hand it in? Reread it. Go old school. Print it. Read it out loud. Get a pencil, get a pen, and write on it, because I even do this myself with my reports, even with job applications, with grant applications. Print it off, reread it, read it out loud. We make our kids do this in writing so that they don't miss those mistakes. We should be doing that as well. And if you're a buddy editor, that's a good strategy to use as well, because that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing that always comes through. So a couple of suggestions before we round it up today. So I suggest you use your school guide if it has one. If your school doesn't have one and you're finding lots of inconsistencies, like one supervisor is allowing certain language, the other one's doing different. One supervisor says use a hyphen, the other one says don't. If there's lots of inconsistencies, make the recommendation to your executive that you get a guideline put in place, because otherwise you're just going to be confused from year to year to year, and that frustration is going to exist. There's nothing wrong with it. You can offer to help write it. We did it collaboratively as a team with our staff. We got their input, and then as executive, we put the document together and we refine it. Every semester when we find something new, like there's a word that's being used, I don't know, spelling's wrong. Everyone's spelling it wrong for some reason. Word has changed it all to Americanized or something. We update the policy and make sure it's in there. It's not a standalone document. It's a living document. It's workable. Make sure you're using your departmental policies as well. We have state policies and school policies that go with these things. Read them, use them, print them, have them next to you. Don't have them as a file sitting in the background somewhere. Have it right there next to you so that when you're stuck on something or you're just a bit not sure, it's right there. And write a base. That's my messy writing. Write a base comment. I recommend writing a base comment for your supervisor and giving that to your supervisor before you do the rest of the class. Pick a high, pick a middle, pick a low, write a comment for each of them, hand it into your supervisor and say, is this okay? Can you give me feedback on this? Because chances are they're going to pick out this, this, and this straight away. That'll save you redoing 30 odd kids worth, just redoing those 3 kids, and then you know you're on the right track for the rest of them. It's just going to save you so much time when it comes down to handing it in. So instead of handing it in and then getting it back and going, oh, now I've got to spend the next week making these changes, you can hand it in and think, do you know what, when it comes back, there might be a comma, there might be a full stop, there might be a word missing, and that's it. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. Share this with your colleagues that are in the middle of report writing at the moment. I'm going to leave it there though. So I'm going to pop my subscription button down the bottom here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Hover over that, click to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I'm going to put my other report writing video at the top there for you. Happy editing, guys. Bye.